Hey folks, welcome to Office Hours FM. I'm your host, Carrie Dills, and today I am chatting with Chris Ducker, and I'm so excited, Chris, to have you on the show. And just, you're an amazingly energetic person, so I hope that, I don't know if that's natural caffeination or just high on life.
There's probably a combination of a little bit of supplemented caffeine involved there, I would have thought.
Fair enough. So anyways, I'm excited to have you on and excited to have you share what you're up to with my audience. For folks that haven't had the chance to stalk you yet online, could you give a little introduction of yourself, who you are, what you do?
Well, I often say, at the very core of what I'm all about, ultimately, I'm just a sales and marketing guy. And that's all I've really been my whole career. I dropped out of college at the age of 17 and went straight into the sales world. Came over here. I was in the publishing business for pretty much my entire career over in the UK. Came here to the Philippines, which is where I've been based now for 16 years. I have several different businesses over here that combine host over around 450 employees. We float around that number. And, I kind of launched my own personal brand in 2010 online, where I was focused on helping, other entrepreneurs kind of build businesses based around their brands, what they stand for, the people they want to serve, and that sort of type of stuff. And really, it's kind of just all gone from there in regards to, focusing in on helping entrepreneurs, regardless of what size businesses they're running, just do it in a smart, savvy manner, but with the focus, obviously, of helping them build the business based around their brand and what they stand for. And it's going very, very well. I can't complain.
Awesome. No, I mean, it looks like it's going very well. I'm curious, did you like wanting to help other people be successful? I feel like I'm a mini Chris Ducker. We do different things, but at the core, trying to help people do their business
Sure.
better. And was that something that just sort of eventually evolved out of work that you were already doing, or how did you kind of hone in on that for a business platform?
I think, well, for the first couple of years of being active online, particularly, I mean, bear in mind, I've been an entrepreneur for the last 14 years. So, I was used to sort of setting up businesses and, dealing with manpower and packaging products and services and working with clients of all sizes and all that sort of stuff. But when I got active online, it was right after a burnout episode that I experienced. And my initial thought was, well, hey, I've hired all these people to fundamentally replace myself and my business so I never burn out again. Let's teach people how to do that. And so that's when I first got really active online through blogging and podcasting. Obviously, we didn't have Facebook Live and Periscope and Google Hangouts and all that stuff 6+ years ago. It was blogging and podcasting, and so I was all about helping people kind of build teams, learn how to delegate tasks properly, manage their own productivity properly, work less, get more, etc., etc. The whole 4-hour work week type thing and all that kind of stuff. And it worked really well, and it took off very, very, very quickly because people were genuinely seeing that needle moving by doing this or by doing that or removing this part of their kind of daily workload. And, you kind of fast forward a couple of more years into it, Virtual Freedom comes out, the book explodes. The speaking career explodes. Everything just goes up to a whole new level. And it was really, I'd say probably around 2013 when I started doing a lot of speaking worldwide, and I was traveling a lot. And what was happening is every time I would go to a city and I was there for any more than a couple of days, what I would do is I would add an additional day onto the trip, and I would hold little mastermind sessions with members of my community, and they pay a few $100s or whatever it was to be there. We'd cover costs, we'd maybe make a little bit of money out of it for me, but not anything crazy. But it was more just about serving the community properly. And two things happened. Number one, I did a whole bunch of these over a couple of years, but two things happened. Number one, I realized that absolutely nobody, regardless of experience level or history in their business or whatever, nobody had a monopoly on good ideas. Zero. Nobody. And you could put 10 people in a room, and someone somewhere at some point during the day was going to drop a value bomb in the room that was going to blow people's minds. And it happened several times throughout the course of the day, where you saw everybody going like this, and then it was, you know, it was full on value bomb time, right? So that was the first thing. The second thing that I noticed was that we were curing what I now call entrepreneurial loneliness. I mean, we were genuinely, by putting these little events on, just even if it was just for that one day, we were curing that loneliness that we all feel as personal brand entrepreneurs, in regards to, you know, the majority of us work at home. We don't have a lot of daily in-person interaction. Thank God for things like Skype and Google and, you know, GoToMeeting and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, it's a lonely journey sometimes. And for that day, and for the weeks and the months, you know, post those events where people would get together on Skype and everything, we were curing that loneliness factor. And I really loved that. And for me, that was where I really started to see, should we say, the guiding light appear towards me. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to bring people together and help them that way.
That's awesome. And it is so rewarding when you can facilitate that for somebody else, those aha moments. Mm-hmm. I love the idea of tacking on a day to a trip. I might borrow that one.
Oh, I mean, you know, at first, it was about just serving the community members and bringing them together, even in small groups. Then I decided pretty quickly that, hey, I could actually, I could seriously cover my costs for these trips I'm doing. 9 times out of 10, I would get my flights and my accommodation paid for. But from time to time, I would have to, you know, I'd be out of pocket for something or another. So, hey, let's cover my costs. We charge a little more. It's more than just a room rental and lunch. Let's charge a little more and I'll make a little money and I'll be able to cover my costs. And now we've got to the point where, you know, if I do put on those smaller events, 6 to 8 people in a day, you know, it's upwards of $1,000, $1,500 a head, and I'm genuinely making some money out of it. Or we go to the bigger group format where I just did one in London last month where we had 45 people, and, you know, we've got, you know, tables of 5 around the room, and I'm facilitating this all-day mastermind, and we bring a special guest in and we do an open Q&A with me at the end and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, you can charge $500 a pop for something like that. And people will get way more out of a day like that for $500 than they would do out of a 2-day conference for $500. Way more, because it's work. Like, you're not just sitting watching some guy chat about how to become more popular on Twitter. You're actually going to be moving the needle and putting action items in place to actually go ahead and take action after the event itself. And so yeah, you should steal away, go for it, because it's a great model, not only to build your own personal brand as a business coach, but also you know, to be able to serve your community well, and, you know, create that kind of evangelist type following as well.
So curious, so you mentioned you do you've done some of the really small, like 6 to 8 people, and then other ones that are larger mastermind style event, but they're still broken into these smaller groups.
Yeah.
Have you found one to be necessarily more impactful than another in terms of the number of people present?
Not really, no. I think, you know, the difference between the two is that the larger group format mastermind people, you know, the people that attend those events are usually just starting out, or they're a hop and a skip above just starting out, and they want to take it up to the next level. Whereas the people that are happy to pay $1,500, you know, to sit around a table of, say, 8 people for the day, they're a hop, skip, jump, and another couple of skips and another jump above, and they want to go, you know, they're the 6 figures wanting to get to multi 6 figures to 7 figures, whereas, you know, everybody else in the larger group environment might just want to get to that 6, maybe multi 6 figures. So there's a very small difference between the two, and you can, you know, we have some people that kind of crisscross between the two, but very rarely will that happen, and it's a nice setting, because it's almost like, You see, when I do those smaller events, that round table type discussion, I see people who were at the larger group events a year or a year and a half ago, and they've kind of gone up to the next level now. And it's nice to see them kind of progress through the ladder. It's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because then you're making a difference, right? If they're showing back up again. So I'd like to chat a little bit about Masterminds. Actually, I think one of my first introductions to you was through your podcast, and you had one on Masterminds. I don't recall which episode it was, but it was a fantastic episode. And we've talked about Masterminds on my podcast from time to time, but folks have expressed quite a bit of curiosity around that idea of a mastermind. What would you say if that someone should expect to both give and receive in a mastermind situation?
Well, there's a couple of different types of masterminds, whereas, I do these live events. They're the same fundamentally in terms of mindset. But, 9 times out of 10, they're virtual. They're done via Skype or, something like Google Hangouts or Zoom or one of the other video conferencing, type apps that are out there. But ultimately, a mastermind is a collection of like-minded minds. Plain and simple. That's what it is in my mind anyway. You have the smaller groups, let's say I think the perfect number for a small virtual mastermind group is 4, because you can meet once a week for say an hour, and every week, each month, somebody is in the hot seat. Okay. So that's where we're focused on you. Okay. It's all about you and what you bring to, or what you want to focus in on, what you're talking about, what you're thinking about doing in your business. So, this week could be all about Carrie and building her business and what she can do to get more people to, watch the show or listen into the show. What can we do from a marketing perspective? How are we going to monetize it? This is an idea she's got for email marketing funnel. Let's break that down and see how crappy it is so we can build it back up again. Oh, no, wait a minute. It's not crappy. That's amazing. I'm going to take that idea for myself as well. And that's exactly what it is. And then every week, next week, it's my turn. And then it's Bob's turn, and then it's Sue's turn, and it goes on. And it just sort of rotates on a monthly basis like that. So those virtual masterminds are great, and they do work. They work brilliantly, but obviously they are limited to just say those 4 people. The flip side of that coin is the larger mastermind group. A little bit like Youpreneur, which is my mastermind community. So you have hundreds of people in there. Obviously, some people are more active than others. You always get your lurkers in a larger community environment. But we have over 500 members inside of Youpreneur. I'd say a good 100 of them are really active, like daily logging in, daily getting involved in the forums, posting, replying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas the other, believe it or not, the other 80% or so, they'll pop in every now and then when I've got a quick answer that they want to give or a quick question they need to ask. But most of the time they're lurking, quite frankly. They're reading, they're watching what other people are up to, they're downloading content that we provide and all that sort of stuff as well. Now, those kind of environments, they each have their pros and cons, right? Whereas in the smaller environment, you have a more focused approach. You get to build those 4 relationships very, very quickly because you're kind of meeting up regularly with just those people. And those relationships become very, very, very close, very tight, lifelong potentially, right? Whereas in the bigger environment, you can still build relationships like that, but it might take a little bit longer to get those super close relationships put in place. But the pro to that larger environment is the fact that you've got more minds to bounce ideas off of. You've got more minds to get feedback from, more minds to get accountability and support from. And 9 times out of 10, you'll have some kind of structured learning environment as well. So we do workshops every month. We do expert interviews every month, which are, they're 100%, the IP is just inside of Youpreneur. You can't find the content anywhere else, yada, yada, yada. And so there is that kind of, there's pros and cons to both, but that is the 2 different types of masterminds that are available for anyone building businesses, whether it be online or off. And by the way, the idea of masterminds is nothing new. We've been doing this as entrepreneurs for decades. decades. We just never had a cool name for it. We've been meeting up with other people for years and years and years in the pub. Remember the beer mat notes and the napkin notes at the restaurant and all that kind of stuff. We've been doing it for years. We just didn't have a cool name for it.
And Mastermind is pretty freaking cool.
Pretty cool name. It is. It's a pretty cool name.
Would you speculate that the people, like you mentioned, about 1/5 of that population is highly engaged, and the rest are maybe less active, but still, kind of hanging out, taking in information? Do you think that the people that are more highly engaged take away more, or is that? Of course,
yeah, of course. They're going to take away more. They're going to get more out of it. They're going to, that growth will come to them in a quicker, upward spurt. Yeah, without a doubt, the more active you are, the more you're going to get out of it. And this is why I always say, to those 80%. And by the way, it's not just Youpreneur. Any membership community online has got those kind of that 80-20 rule. Whereas, 80% are there, they're consuming content. I can see the stats. I can see who's watching the video, how many people are watching and all the rest of it. Like, I can see these things. I know they're in there, but they're just not super active inside of the forums. So, you fundamentally don't see a lot of to and fro from these people. But that doesn't mean they're not utilizing their investment from the content and from the learning perspective. But I just know, and I often harp on them a little bit and say, like, guys, how much time every week do you spend watching freaking Netflix? Like, literally, like, how much time are you oogling away, wasting your life away in front of the computer screen or your TV screen watching House of Cards? Don't get me wrong, I love the show, but don't let it stop you from, developing and furthering your business. All it takes, based on experience and based on surveys that we've done with our members and from speaking with other people that run membership communities and things like that, all it really takes is about 45 minutes a week. That can be in one spurt, or it can be broken up into, say, 3 sections of 15 minutes, which I prefer. Right? I prefer that in terms of actually getting into the community. This isn't consuming training information, but just getting into the community 3 times a week for 15 minutes at a time. Fire off a couple of replies to people, like a couple of posts, follow a few people's, status updates, ask a couple of questions. 15 minutes, 3 times a week. Come on. It takes longer to bake a pizza, for Christ's sake. I mean, just get in there and do it, right? And this is why I'm always like, just get in there. Just get in there. But, some people just want to be lurkers. But that's all it really takes at the end of the day. And you'll get way more out of an environment like that from a learning and from a needle moving perspective than you will do through, picking up a book and reading that. And you'll get it a lot faster too.
That's some great advice right there. And now I'm going to think about pizza every time I'm engaging the community in my 15-minute blocks.
There you go.
So how would you, if somebody was just trying out, and I want to talk about Youpreneur in just a second, but if somebody was, say, trying out a smaller mastermind group, they got one, just a few buddies together or whatnot. How do you know if a group is right for you? Like, is it just you're feeling it or you're not feeling it? Or
yeah, I mean, gut comes into play quite a bit, and I've been members of many of those smaller mastermind groups before, where we would meet up regularly. A couple of them have been brilliant, and they've helped me move my business like mad. A couple of them were a total waste of my time, quite frankly, where I felt like I was the smartest person in the group without, harping on my own ego here. But you don't want that. You don't want to be the smartest person in the group. You want other people to be smarter than you so you can learn from them, right? And when I get on the phone once a week for 45 minutes, an hour, and I feel like I'm just giving away free consulting sessions, there's a problem there, because I have a massive premium on my time. And when I do handle those private coaching clients, which are very rare nowadays, but when I do, I charge $2,000 an hour, and I get it because that's what I feel my time is worth. So what I'm saying is that you've got to follow your gut above and beyond everything else. If you think about all the times that you've done things that you've regretted, okay, 9 times out of 10, it was because you said the word yes and not because of the word no. Okay, all right? No matter what end you want to look at it, buying bad concert tickets, getting married, you know, whatever it is, all the times where you've really truly regretted something, it's because you said yes, and not because you pulled back and said, no, this is not for me. Thank you very much for playing. You know what I mean? So I've pulled myself out of a couple of groups before. You know, the other thing is this also, with that smaller group environment, you know, we actually had, there was one group, and this is one of the reasons why it worked so well. It was one group where if you didn't turn up, you had to put $500 into the kitty, as we called it. And, you know, every now and then something would happen where somebody was traveling or whatever the case may be. And what we would do is at the end of every quarter, and there was usually maybe $1,500, like we'd have 3 no-shows in 3 months, right? Maybe a little bit more. But, you know, people, you know, the people that I was mastermind with, they're busy people. They're consultants, they're speakers, they're authors, they're out, they're traveling, they're doing stuff. And so we'd have maybe 1,500, $2,000 every quarter that we would then go ahead and just donate to charity in some capacity, right? But the fact was that if you're not there, it's going to cost you. Financially, it's going to cost you. And it worked because we very rarely had any more than a couple of no-shows each quarter. And you know, it's one of those things. You know, I've actually had mastermind calls at airports, like when I'm waiting for flights and things like that, because I don't, you know, I love to give to charity, but I'm not going to do it that way where I'm letting down my people in a mastermind environment. They need me just as much as I need them.
Yeah, I think that consistency is key of showing up and being engaged.
Yeah.
So Youpreneur is something you created that's and you already hit on it a little bit, but it's an online community of anyone that wants to be in this virtual mastermind. And you mentioned you do some expert interviews, and then you said workshops. Like, what's going on with that?
Yes, we do training workshops every month where basically each month we will have either a influencer or a fellow Youpreneur member or myself will come in and do a 30-minute training session on one particular subject, but we deep dive. This isn't fluff. We really deep dive. So it might be how to build your first real email marketing funnel, or it might be how to hire your first virtual assistant with, you know, 100%, you know, confidence behind it. Or it could be, you know, how to put together an affiliate marketing strategy that will work passively and non-passively for you. You know, all these things. We really deep dive. You know, how to create a great slide deck for when you're doing public speaking. All these things, deep diving on different elements of serving the community, which is a community that's made and built and grows because of the people inside of it who are coaches, speakers, authors, consultants, freelancers, experts, bloggers, podcasters, anybody that's really building a business based around their personal brand. And that's who we serve, and that's who we create all that content for, and that's why we've got the, you know, the community for. And so, yeah, so we do the workshops. We have our process blueprints once a month as well, which are fundamentally just, you know, they're glorified infographics is what they are. But what they truly are is actually step-by-step processes on a number of different sections of building a business based around your brand. So it could be things like how to create and market the perfect blog post every time. That's one of our most popular ones because there is a system, there's a strategy behind it. How to create a high converting opt-in offer. So we go through the steps involved in these things, and people love them, man. They download them, and we can see the download numbers because everything's tagged. They download them, they print them out. We've had people make like posters out of them, you know, and put them on their office wall so they can, you know, because they're repeatable tasks that happen over and over and over again. And therefore, if you just follow that strategy, you've got way more opportunity for, you know, for hitting a winning combination. And so, yeah, we do one of those each month. We do a live mastermind call with myself every month as well, where people get on, they ask me questions, they ask each other questions. And, you know, they're supposed to be an hour, but they tend to delve more towards the 2-hour mark because we just had too much fun. And then there's, you know, the real guts of the community is the private forums. And that's where the day-to-day stuff goes on.
Cool. So this is kind of off on the side, but how do you actually facilitate those calls with a ton of people on them?
Oh, we do them via GoToWebinar. You know, I am the hostess with the mostest, and I sit there on this 27-inch Mac that I'm, you know, chatting to you right now, and I manage it myself. I do it all myself. So I pull people in one by one to talk. If they have questions, they pop them up in the comment section, and sometimes we take pre-submitted questions and that sort of type of stuff. But it's more about just, honestly, it's more about just having a bit of fun at the same time, because it's one time every month where we can kind of get everybody on live together. You know, we might do kind of, you know, we might broadcast it via Periscope as well, and you know, maybe Facebook live video or something like that. It's about just community. It's about bringing people together. And now what we have is we have these little mini, and this is exciting, we have these little mini meetups going on each month around the world. So there'll be a London meetup or a LA meetup in New York, or they call it the East Coast meetup because people come from Philly and all these other places as well. We have meetup in Sydney every month, and you know, Melbourne and Belgium and Switzerland and all these places. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is legitimately a worldwide community of people that have all come together on the internet, but here they are now meeting up with people in person. And there was an event, you know, one of the biggest things is whenever there's a live event like a conference or something like that, and we know that there's going to be a load of Youpreneurs there, we'll say, okay, this restaurant, this time, this hotel suite, this time, whatever it is, and everybody to get together for the official Youpreneur meetup, and it's just great. There was an event up in Edinburgh last week where I believe there was 8 Youpreneurs all hanging out with each other. I did a speech in an event in San Diego in April, and we had like 25 people in my hotel suite. We actually got thrown out. Well, we were told we were told that everybody needed to vacate the suite, as they said in San Diego, because we were making too much noise, and some of the other people on the floor were complaining. So they didn't just throw us out on our ears immediately. We did get a warning, but clearly we didn't listen to the warning.
Well, hey, everyone needs a good story about how they got tossed out for something. Yeah. So,
well, I was worried they might kick me out as well because I was sleeping there that night. But it was all good. Everything worked out well in the end.
Oh, cool. Thanks for sharing that. I know that folks will be interested to hear about that. Shifting gears a little bit, you have a book called Virtual Freedom, and you mentioned earlier the 4-hour work week. But so I was kind of getting this Tim Ferriss vibe off of some of the things that you were saying. But can you?
There we go. I'll hold it up. Can I just pimp it for a minute?
Oh, there we go. Yes, you can pimp it.
There we go. I'm pimping. There you go. That's it. Okay, carry on.
Hashtag straight pimp.
Let's see how many people actually tweet that. God, it will be good.
We'll see if we can start a trending hashtag there. So virtual freedom, you're talking about virtual assistants. And, you know, when I read 4-hour work week for the first time, it was like, oh my gosh, this just, I mean, of course, it sounds amazing. You've got this well-oiled machine. It's right. Just, you know, automated and doing things for you. I guess, like, first tell a little bit about the book, and then your, I don't know if the philosophy is the right word to call it, but why you're such a big believer in using virtual assistants. Well,
okay. So the reason why I believe working with, and really the term virtual assistants has gone through somewhat of a growth phase, I think, over the last 4 to 5 years or so. You know, when you think of the term virtual assistant, you think of somebody in India or the Philippines or something like that. Now, there are great VAs in those companies, obviously, in those countries, rather, obviously, but I prefer to use the term virtual staff. And the reason why I prefer that term is because I don't really care where you are. If you can do a job for me, regardless of what that job is, I'll hire you. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that hiring people virtually will actually, it'll look after my business better, it'll serve my business better, and it'll help me grow my business faster, because we are, as a as a community of entrepreneurs around the world, we are no longer, you know, constrained by geographic location when it comes to our hiring. I have a developer that works in Slovenia, for Christ's sake. I mean, he's in Slovenia. The guy who he works with designs my sites is in Sydney. I have social media and blog VAs based here in the Philippines, and I work with transcriptionists in the UK. My video editor is in San Diego, and my audio editor for my podcast is based in Belgium. You see where I'm going with this?
I do. And my first thought is, oh my gosh, how do you manage across all these time zones?
That's the thing. I personally don't. I have a project manager that manages all those stuff. So I work with her, and she is based here in the Philippines, but she's been with me 8 years. So why wouldn't I have her, you know, be ultimately the most important person in that team environment, right? But I mean, and by the way, she's not in the same city. She's an hour on an airplane in another direction. But it's good that she's on the same time zone for sure. But you know, the fact of the matter is that that's one of the reasons why. That's the main reason why I love virtual staff so much, because I can choose anybody from anywhere in the world, and it's a beautiful thing. And I'm getting to help people in some countries where, you know, they're getting paid 4 times as much from me for doing a job that if they were doing the exact same job for a local company, they're making 4 times as much money from me, you know, working with me. So I like helping people. I like doing that as well. And, you know, the philosophy behind it is hire for the role, not for the task. So I'm all about building a team. I want to build a team. From time to time, there might be just a quick task that I need done, and I'll go to my project manager and say, hey, we need this done very quickly. Go ahead and find somebody on, you know, freelancer.com or upwork.com or something like that. But that nowadays for us is so few and far between, because we've got all the different positions in place already, because we've been slowly but surely over the last, you know, really solidly the last 4 years been growing this virtual team. And so, you know, that's where the idea came for Virtual Freedom. It was, you know, hell, if I can do it, I'm a British dude living in the Philippines doing business with the majority of my clients being in the United States. If I can do this, anybody can do it. I don't care what you say. And virtual doesn't mean offshore anymore. It used to. Outsourcing doesn't mean offshore anymore. It used to. But now it just means remote. It means that you could be in Chicago and working with somebody in New York, or you could be in LA and working with somebody in Miami. It doesn't matter. Or you could be in Miami and working with somebody in the Philippines. It really, truly doesn't matter. It's just about getting the right people in for the right roles.
And when you say roles versus task, roles being kind of broad things like, this is my social media person, this is my web person.
Exactly. Okay. Because you don't want to, you know, that's what I call the myth of the super VA, where you want to try and hire one person to do everybody's jobs. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in real life. What makes you think you can do it in the virtual world, right? The analogy I use is you build a house from scratch. So you get an architect to design a house, then you hire a head contractor. What does a head contractor do? He subcontracts all the work out. He'll get a plumber, you'll get the electrician, you'll get the roofer, you'll get the bricklayer, you'll get the landscaper. You can't expect a landscaper to do your electrical work. You can't expect a roofer to put together your plumbing. It's a catastrophe waiting to happen, right? So why would you expect a web developer to be able to run your social media properly? Why would you expect a graphic designer to be able to edit video? It doesn't work that way. So you hire for the role, not for the task.
I like that. And
I'm quite passionate about this because it drives me bloody mad where I see it happening every single day, and people just expect to be able to hire one person to do like 3 people's jobs. And it's just a nightmare ready to unravel. Trust me. I've seen it happen over and over and over again.
Okay. Well, this brings up some follow-up questions. One is, and I know I'm just tossing you some softballs, so you're welcome in advance. Where do people, how do you find or connect with the person that's right for a specific role that you're needing.
Yeah. Well, I always say the first thing you should do whenever you're looking to hire anybody is go to your current network first, because our networks today are way bigger than what they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because of social media and the fact that we're just more online, we're more connected than ever before as a human race, right? So go to your personal network first and just fire out a quick Facebook message or a quick email to a bunch of people. Does anyone know anybody that can handle this? Now, if that comes back a blank, you have to cast that net a little bit wider, right? So you can start going towards some of the freelancing websites that I've mentioned already. But you know, the problem with that, it's a pretty monotonous, arduous task, because what happens is you've got to put together your job description, you've got to post it up online, you're going to get 200 freelancers hit you back within 24 hours saying, I can do the job better than anybody in the world. You've got to go through all those resumes, you've got to get the background checks, you've got to do all the interviews, you've got to read all the cover letters and all the rest of it. Or, and it is a softball question, so thank you, you can look towards something like Virtual Staff Finder, which is our virtual staff recruiting hub, where we ultimately do it all for you, and you pay a one-time fee, and then we give you the 3 best candidates based on everything laid out, and you choose the one you like the most and start working with them. That simple. See, for me, time is our most valuable commodity. Hands down. There is nothing more important in an entrepreneur's world than time. Fact, right? So if it's going to take me 6, 7, 8 hours, and that's the average, to go through all the applications and end up making a hire, and that means that I'm going to lose all that time, I'd rather spend the $495 with a service like Virtual Staff Finder and get them to do all that work for me and just get on Skype for 45 minutes and interview people quickly. Like, I'd much rather do that than waste my time going through the whole process, you know, myself. And here's the other thing. I don't know the process. If I'm doing this for the first time, I don't know what to look for, what not to look for. I have no idea. So I'm going to make mistakes. Very, very rarely do you hit a home run on your first virtual hire. It's just the nature of the beast. It is what it is. You've got to go through 2 or 3 VAs before you really find that one special somebody that can alleviate all that work that you've got that day or that week or that month or whatever. And so, you know, when you have the opportunity, and that's why recruiting companies to this day are still making bucket loads of money and serving people in such a great way, because they know how to do it better than you. It's that simple. It really is that simple.
Oh yeah. I call that cost of opportunity, or opportunity cost, that you
right.
spending your time doing what it is that makes you money and not doing, for example, as someone who helps clients build websites. There are a lot of folks out there that are DIY, and I'm like, oh my gosh, stop wasting your time trying to build a website. Go sell a house and make a huge commission, and then just pay me to build your website.
Right.
It's the way it works.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have a great website story. So when I got active online before, I have a little OCD in me in the way I want things to look, and you know, I'm very, very focused on my reputation and my personal brand. I think it's, you know, your reputation really does precede you. And I truly believe that, you know, your brand ultimately is what people say about you when you ain't around. Fact, right? So I wanted to have a nice looking website when I got active in January of 2010 online. So what did I do? I bought a WordPress theme for $79.99 from one of those companies, and it looked beautiful. It was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted, except over the weekend after I installed it on my server, I decided that I wanted to change a few things. And then I decided out of nowhere that I was going to become a PHP developer and started trying to reprogram this website that was perfectly fine out of the box, which is why I bought it in the bloody first place, right? And then I wrecked the code over the weekend. What did I have to do? I went ahead and hired a freelancer to fix it all and actually get it to where I wanted it to be. And it ended up costing me like $400. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Never in my life have I ever touched PHP or any kind of code since that moment. I always just pay somebody.
It's important to know your strengths.
Yes.
Know your strengths.
I say, if you're not a graphic designer, but you're an entrepreneur and you need something designed, don't sit in Photoshop for hours and hours trying to design your logo. Hire somebody that designs logos for a living. What are you doing? You're not a graphic designer. Get out of Photoshop.
Yeah, that's the older I get and the more different kinds of projects I've experienced, same thing. I'm going to hone in on what my strengths are and
Yeah.
outsource, or, find partners to do the other things.
Yeah.
So let's talk about kind of how you even get started with virtual staff or even a single virtual assistant. Like, as an entrepreneur, let's say you're just bootstrapping, like you're starting at zero, kind of scratching, clawing, getting things going. And in the kind of the nature of the beast is that you do everything yourself in those early days. What is the point in time where you're like, okay, my time could be better spent focusing on, writing content or whatever it is? Is there sort of like a formula, like, this is the moment that I need to let go of this?
I don't think there's a formula. I think there's there's signs for sure. I believe it's inevitable that every entrepreneur will burn out at some point in their career, unless they heed the advice of people that have already burned out and how to avoid it. And building a team of people instead of trying to do it all yourself is probably the biggest piece of advice you can give an entrepreneur. You talk to any successful entrepreneur, I guarantee you that they will tell you one of the reasons why they're so successful is because of the great people that they've got around them. So Richard Branson is a perfect example. Founder and CEO of the Virgin Group worldwide, fellow Brit, so he gets instant gold star for that. But a very, very smart guy at the same time. And, I remember listening to an interview with him, and I'm going to paraphrase him a little bit here, probably. This is not a direct quote, but I remember, and as somebody who hires and employs hundreds of people, this really struck home. And he said, you want to train and treat people so well that they could easily get another job tomorrow. But you want to really, truly treat them so well that they never want to leave. And I've never forgotten that piece of advice. Train them so well that they could get another job, but treat them so well that they never want to leave. And there's something to be said about that. And that for me has really been something I followed in my career as I continue to grow my own business, my own team, across the board. And there's something to be said for that kind of mentality. And so I believe that overwhelm will hit. Burnout will come your way. Nobody is immune to it. But if you've got a great team around you, then, you're more likely to avoid it. And obviously, things will be a lot better for you.
That's the truth. I like that quote. Thank you. I didn't even...
Yeah.
I guess I don't even realize that Sir Richard Branson had a podcast, but that shouldn't be surprising.
Well, no, I don't think he does. I think it was an interview that I saw either on YouTube or it was something else he was doing. Maybe it was a BBC documentary or something like that. But no, I mean, he's just one of those guys. Like you can't fault somebody who's done that much for the world and that much for the environment and all that kind of, like, when somebody like that talks, you bloody shut up and listen to them because they're smart, plain and simple. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, let's wrap up here because I don't want you to invoice me for a full hour. So I'm going to see if I can get in under the wire
here. Yeah, get a discount, get a time discount. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you live in the Philippines, and then your virtual service Finder is based around recruiting people in the Philippines.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So Virtual Staff Finder was set up to focus in on really teaming up busy entrepreneurs overseas with Filipino VAs. And the reason why was because the Filipino is very westernized in the way of thought, in the way of talking. They speak amazingly clear English. Anybody can understand a Filipino when they speak. As long as they've gone through a college education, doesn't matter what course it is, they've graduated from college, you will be able to have a perfectly good conversation with them. Their written English is superb. They spell in the American format, which sometimes drives me a little crazy as a British guy. I just believe that yous should be remained in words. That you should not take yous out. I'm fine with the whole Z and the S thing, but if there's a U there, leave it in there. But yeah, there's certain things that they can do that, you know, other people, you know, in developing countries can't. Yeah.
So, but how did you come to live in the Philippines? Was this?
I just came over, you know, I was hired as a consultant to come over and work with one of the banks over here to help them with their telemarketing outreach locally. You know, because that was my background in the publishing world back in the UK. I was in the sales and marketing sector, particularly telesales and telemarketing. And so I came over, I did that. And then I got poached by another bank to do exactly the same thing, got paid double to do it. And I did that for the first 4 years that I was here. But the last year, I was kind of already moonlighting and setting up my own firm and doing a few other bits and pieces. And we've been doing that ever since.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and we'll wrap up here. But before I do, is there anything else? Is there a question that I didn't ask you that you would just really love to give an answer to?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't, because you see, you could ask me anything, and that's a scary situation for any interviewee. So whenever anybody says, you know, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? Or if you were stranded on a desert island, like, we have those answers ready to go, but anything could come out. What's one question that you want to ask me that, and maybe one that you would not normally ask me if we were live? Let me put it back on your shoulders.
Ah, okay.
Let's get nitty gritty. Let's get
nitty gritty. So one thing that I'm always curious about is pricing and how people land on price points for either products, virtual or digital products, their services, or you know, like membership communities, or access to restricted content, ebooks, that sort of thing. You've had experience in pretty much everything I just mentioned, or even online courses for that matter. What have you just done the spaghetti method? Throw it up against the wall, see what sticks?
No.
Or is there a method behind the madness?
I believe the spaghetti method is not a method. It's just pure luck. No, I think that, you know, ultimately pricing comes down to two things. It's consumer driven, and it's, you know, it's owner driven, right? That's what it comes down to. Consumer driven, whereas, you know what, you want somebody else in your industry selling what you're selling. Okay. If you're the only one out there selling it, it means that there's probably not much of a market for it. Right? Fact. So put that on one side. Now, what are they charging across the board? Or you put all your competitors together, what are they charging? The mean average? Maybe you go more high end, maybe you go more low end. Is it a volume thing? Is it a margin thing? What is it? That comes down to the ownership side of things. For me personally, I like to put a premium on everything that I do. So for example, every year I run a conference here in the Philippines, which is 1 week long. It's called Tropical Think Tank. We hold it at a 5-star beach resort. We bring big, well-known speakers to the Philippines to speak. We have daily mastermind sessions. We have cocktail hour every night. We do great dinners and snorkeling cruises and all this sort of stuff. It is high-end all the way. And it's also $4,250 a ticket. And there's only 50 tickets available. So you're creating that scarcity. But because I'm not looking for volume, I'm looking at margin. And because of the amount of money I spend on the actual event itself, I need to price it up at where that is right there. So it's not for everybody, but I know that the people that are coming can afford it and they're going to get something great out of it. Whereas Youpreneur community, for example, is currently $59. It's going to go up to $69 in September because we're going through a whole brand new rebrand and rebuild, and it's going to have all the shining bells and the whistles and all the rest of it. And because we're adding a ton of more content in there, lots of new training courses, lots of new stuff that's going in, it deserves to be at a higher price point. Now, there are some online communities that are at $30 a pop, but, you know, the owner of those communities are very rarely inside the forums. You don't get any real one-on-one time with them in any way, shape, or form. And that's not what I wanted for Youpreneur. I wanted to be very front and center for the community and be the leader of that community. And that's exactly what I do. And so if you want that time, you want that access, you want that exclusivity, you've got to pay a little bit more for it. Ebooks are probably one of the worst priced products that you can potentially get, because people vastly undercut what they believe their ebooks should be at. Whatever you're charging for any ebook that you own currently right now, I've got a pricing strategy for you that will instantly make you more money. And here it comes. And it has its own hashtag, by the way. You'll like this, Carrie. You'll like this. Hashtag double it. Take that away. Put, as we were saying in England, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Hashtag double it. Whatever you're charging for an ebook, I don't care what it is. I don't care what the content is. I don't care when it came out. Whatever ebook you're selling, hashtag double it. You will instantly make more money on a monthly basis. I guarantee it. And the same can be said actually for a lot of courses online as well. You put weeks, if not months of work, energy, and effort, and maybe a certain amount of invested cash as well into putting a course together, building it out, getting it, launching it, managing it, supporting it, all the rest of it. And then you sell it for $198 or something. Like, are you mad? You've got 10 years of experience in your head as a graphic designer. Now you're showing up and coming graphic designers how to build their graphic design business, and you're only charging them $197 for an 8-hour course on how to build a graphic design business. You're mad. Should be committed. Double it, triple it, quadruple it. But please don't give your information away. Don't give your expertise away for next to nothing. If you want to be respected in regards to whatever industry you're in, if you want to be seen as a thought leader, as a leader of any kind, as an influencer, you must be seen to sell. You must be seen to sell. Those that give stuff away for practically nothing, if not nothing, are not respected in any industry circles because they're giving it away. You must be seen to sell, my opinion.
Hashtag double it, baby.
That's it. I reckon if you search Twitter, there's going to be a few people talking about that. There must be.
As soon as we get off, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go do that. I'll right along with hashtag pimp that. Or
pimp that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure just getting to chat with you one-on-one. So I thank you very much, sir, and I will let you get on and enjoy your day.
Thank you, and I hope to hopefully meet you at some point in the future.
Thanks, Chris. I hope so too. Bye.